I begin my statement by recognizing and paying respect to a large delegation of women and girls from Afghanistan who are present here today in this council. My delegation welcomes the report of the Special Rapporteur. We appreciate his and his team's dedicated efforts, including his visit to the country, advocacy, active engagement with all stakeholders, and his presentation today. Madam Vice President, 1 year after the Taliban's military takeover, the story of broken promises is well known and the seriousness of the situation is well established. Girls are still barred from secondary education. Women are deprived of safety, freedom and fulfillment. Minorities are persecuted, subjected to widespread and systematic attacks. The civic space continues to be severely restricted. Reprisal killing and forced disappearances are ongoing. Barriers to access to health care and livelihood, along with food insecurity, persist, while aid is still insufficient, but it also not delivered to all in most need. Musicians and artists remain under threat and the cultural heritage is being destroyed. Those who attempt to leave the country undertake treacherous journey only to face violence pushback in different countries. Madam Vice President, respect for human rights is indispensable to having a legitimate government today. It should also be an important benchmark for any international engagement, including the process of delivery of aid. Madam Vice President, the story of change Taliban is proved to be an untenable narrative. Armed with their discriminatory and authoritarian agenda, the Taliban are mercilessly proceeding on the path to subjugating citizens. Tyranny is the order of the day. People are left with no choice but to resist. The past few weeks alone have seen marked with widespread insecurity, civilian casualties, and large tragic blasts. The provinces of Panjshir, Kapisa, Parwan, Baghlan, Takhar, Kandahar, Saripol, Nangarhar, and Samangan, torture, ill treatment, mass punishment, arbitrary detention, and forced displacement continue to be carried out. The risk is much more and unthinkable. These things are imminent. Major international terrorist groups are once again active inside the country, and the threats of acts of terrorism in the country, in the region, and beyond is undeniable. Madam Vice President, while we appreciate Special Rapporteur's serious efforts and support his report's recommendation, we want to emphasize that today's report and the recent report by UNAMA fails to capture the full spectrum and the full nature and the extent of violation and abuses across the country. Insufficient resources and inability to access locations where violations are taking place, particularly in the north, and the fear to seek redress from among communities under severe surveillance and the mass punishment have made it impossible to grasp the dire situation on the ground. Many violations are going undocumented, many casualties are overlooked. Madam Vice President, countless victims, survivors, human rights defenders, marginalized and vulnerable communities have called for a greater accountability and full and transparent investigation. We ask everyone here in this Council to vigorously advocate for a robust accountability mechanism for Afghanistan, and we urge this Council to establish this in this session. When there is a will, there is a way. Such a mechanism will allow for independent local and international documentation of and development of historical record. It will pave the way for identification of those responsible and for perpetrators to be held accountable and for the victim to have access to redress. It will enable coordination with OHCHR, UNAMA, mandate holders, International Criminal Court and the UN bodies. It will provide foundation for the large project of justice and prevention. The Council's failure, Madam Vice President, to respond to the crisis in Afghanistan means that serious violation of human rights can be met with apathy and selectivity. That this Council is a forum for exchange of words without action, a place to preserve one's own interest over the universal respect for human rights, where victims are left behind while the abusers can walk free. The cost of impunity is inhumility. And we have clearly observed this in Afghanistan. Madam Vice President, to close, I wanted to emphasize that the people of Afghanistan, women and men, demonstrated unparalleled resilience and determination to continue with their peaceful protest and resistance. They deserve strong support, empathy, and equality and dignity. The next chapter of Afghanistan can be either one of prolonged pain and suffering, a playbook of ceaseless oppression by terrorist regime, or one of resistance for change, a struggle for accountability and prevention. The latter could be supported by a roadmap from this Council's commitment to uphold the rights everywhere. Thank you very much.